Mainstream media saying that there's no transparency. I mean, before it was Elon Musk and President Trump doing this and being highly scrutinized for it, it was just unnamed bureaucrats in the city that nobody knew just writing checks. And finally, we're actually looking at the books, and what they are revealing is truly appalling, but I guess not surprising when you look at the way that Washington has been run for decades. Again, the American people voted for this monumental change, and that's exactly what they're getting.
Karoline Leavitt utterly destroyed the Viewpoint and the leftist media, stating unequivocally that they will all be banned if they persist in disseminating false information against the Trump administration. In addition, she has threatened to sue The View for their constant harassment of her on the show, after Leavitt threatened to sue the network for millions of dollars. The producer of The View reportedly told Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg to apologize formally right away. The Trump administration is the most transparent administration in history, she added. And that's precisely what the left-wing media is attempting to overlook. Moreover, they have ignored a clear directive from Trump to deal with the Gulf of America crisis. Let me now demonstrate the responses from The View and CNN.
Have a little symbol called the Gulf, formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico, which should now be called whatever the hell.
There's a much broader.
There's also whatever the hell he wants.
There's a much broader danger. Today it's the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America. Tomorrow, what is it? The president says there's only 2 genders in this world. We all know transgender people. What happens when the AP reports on transgender Americans? What happens when CNN or ABC or the New York Times?
It's hilarious. Have you observed their desperate attempts to make connections and further their agenda? Observe how The Viewpoint attempted to clarify it following the ban.
White House Correspondents Association released a statement, and it said, the White House cannot dictate how news organizations report the news, nor should it penalize working journalists because it is unhappy with their editors' decisions. And the AP is signaling legal action, calling this a violation of their First Amendment rights. Now, and the reason I got to read that is because I said, you know, it's so funny. I haven't seen it reported anywhere else. I haven't seen that piece of information anywhere else.
What, that it's illegal?
That the AP said, that they said, listen, we're not standing for this.
Right. Yeah.
That's a huge, you know, and because I was saying to Robin, I said, you know, they all need to get together and push back. You can't do it one at a time. She said, no, and then she gave me that piece of information. So are they right?
Yes, they are. I mean, we do have the Constitution still, at least in the United States. And, you know, I think the First Amendment is the First Amendment because it's one of the most important amendments, right? And it's freedom of speech.
Really? How did Sunny Hostin become a lawyer and win any cases? That's all I can think of. Here's the thing. The president is free to choose who he meets and who he does not. And this is unrelated to the First Amendment. Even so, why did the previous government close its doors to inquiries? Where were you at the time? Everyone in the United States should follow any executive order that President Trump signs.
And the press is the direct check for the government overreach. It's the direct check. It's the press reports to the American people the facts of what is really happening. Or, you know, and so I think there's no question that the AP should defend its constitutional rights. And what the Trump can, I guess, certainly bar people from the Oval Office, but what they cannot do is tell people what they can say. They cannot do it. And one last thing, the AP style guide is many newsrooms across the country follow the AP style guide. And it was published on January 23rd of this year after the executive order. And what it said was renaming the Gulf of Mexico is one thing, but Trump's order only carries authority within the United States, and other countries do not have to recognize the change. And so they're reporting it accurately.
We don't need more fake news to be propagated by liberal mainstream media. They are plenty for us. A small group of people who can always report the truth is what we need. And this is what I mean when I say a few.
Showed some receipts today, like they didn't believe these things existed. If you show these people in the press room, this is $2.5 million for cow flatulence reduction. Do any of these reporters make a case for $2.5 million for cow flatulence reduction in Brazil?
Well, they tried to make the case yesterday for $50 million in condoms to Gaza, saying that they actually went to another country, as if that's any better. The point is we are discovering this egregious misuse of American taxpayer funds. And yes, Jesse, we have the receipts, and I will continue to pull them at every briefing if they continue to ask, and we will provide that information. We have nothing to hide. Again, President Trump is exposing what the American people want him to do.
By the way, she brought up the subject of Gaza because Joy Behar had brought it up, saying it was the wrong Gaza. The only thing Joy Behar failed to notice, though, was that they publicly acknowledged their deception, nor did Karoline Leavitt stop there. In addition to dismantling the woke Democrats at each briefing, she also took down their media this time.
Excellence scares Donald Trump. It scares Stephen Miller, and it scares Elon Musk. Because you know what? Deep down, they recognize their own mediocrity. And so they're doing everything they can to entrench the racial wealth gap.
If you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening here, and for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
To reiterate, for woke liberals, gender and race are the most important factors. To make their followers fearful, they keep sponsoring and producing problems every day. Speaking of financing, you should watch this video.
Elon Musk is a threat to our democracy. Allowing him to uncover fraud in the misappropriation of taxpayer dollars is somehow a constitutional crisis. Let me remind you all what you'll be losing if Elon Musk is not stopped. Americans will not benefit from the $2 million spent on a pancake eating contest in Mongolia. They will not benefit from the $4 million to fund a tampon throwing contest in Dubai. They will not benefit from the $8 million to produce Pimp My Ride in Zimbabwe. Hello? We got it. Got what? Evidence that USAID is actually really beneficial to the American people. Okay, I'll be right there. It came in 10 minutes ago. I'm sure this will make Americans really supportive of USAID. Elmo wants to jihad. Elmo wants women to not show their ankles. Elmo wants to teach your son how to throw a stone really hard. This is exactly what the American people will lose if we don't stop Elon Musk. I agree. Look at this. On the left is one of Musk's cronies. He goes by the alias Big Balls. I suspect it's a nickname he gave himself so people think he's packing, but by the looks of it, I'd say his balls aren't really that big. He recently recommended cutting $16 million funding an Afghanistan version of Karate Kid, which makes him the biggest threat to our democracy to date. My God, it's a constitutional crisis. We're sending a man inside Doge to gather information. This is our spy, David Hogg, codenamed Teeny Tiny Teensy Weensy Balls. Are you sure this will work? It's a 50-50 shot. My only concern is that he's too masculine to masquerade as a genius.
This, I suppose, sums up the left-wing media and their demonstrations quite well. Karoline Leavitt, however, has ignored the awakened Democrats. Take a look at how she made fun of them in her most recent interview with Jesse Waters.
They did that, Jesse. I was watching the faces of the mainstream media reporters who were in the Oval Office, and there was sheer silence because it appeared that many of them, who are supposed to be writing the truth about our federal bureaucracy, had no idea that the federal retirement system is being processed deep into the ground and is not computerized.
Unfortunately for Karoline, the left-leaning media isn't covering anything like this because they're all concentrating on stories that nobody wants to hear.
Whether you're talking about conservation or otherwise, hundreds of miles out into the sea. This actually happens in the global economy or in a country. Oh my God. So the body of water south of China, which much of the world calls the South China Sea, China calls it South Sea, Vietnam calls it Eastern Sea, and Philippines has designated parts of it the West Philippine Sea. So it happens. I needed to know that because I was like, why would you wide swath it? And Google and GPS things will call it Gulf of America only in this country. So then if you search it outside, so it's like, It's a little more complicated. It's a dumb thing
But
to
why
hang your
does she
hat on.
care about it when the prices are going up on eggs? Why does it?
See, with all these big problems, Joy Behar is suddenly concerned about egg costs. I assure you that she is merely bringing this up to divert attention from the true direction of the conversation. Let me know your thoughts on this issue, and don't forget to like and subscribe.